morning, everyone. It is January 2021, and this is session 1 of the Masterclass Shortcut series, an accelerated program to get you information that will be helpful to engage in throughout the course of your to-dos and to-dones. Let's grab a cup of coffee or some snacks. I don't know how you like to learn, but I usually like to be chewing on something. I do have my coffee right here. Have an open mind, be ready to engage, and have that notebook and pencil to scribble down things that you hear or thoughts that might be triggered around how you can incorporate this information into your daily life. If you have any interest in downloading the actual workbook or the toolkits that will be built out of this series, you can find all of them at my website, or you can follow me at Instagram at Zelladu_. And let's get started. Let's jump right in. So this is the Shortcut series. Today we're talking about sharpening your personal brand. And before we really dive into the content, I think that maybe I introduce myself, because you're like, who is this girl and why does she know so much about brands? Well, I am Stephanie. I am a experience design expert, a project management expert. I've been working in a lot of different fields over the course of the last 24 years. I started working in 1996 at Burger King. And I've had a lot of really interesting jobs since then, and a lot of them, well, everything has to do with brand, but a lot of them were specifically about telling brand stories and consumer stories, and then developing from there. It's kind of matured into the dissection of how that all works on different levels. And I just love people, and so I've been putting all of this information that I've had the privilege of seeing into a pot, and I'm going to begin sharing that information with you. Now, this is about personal brand. The rest of this session touches base on a lot of things that you can improve in your personal life with regards to like credit strategy, and if you ever feel like purchasing something, or keeping healthy mindset, that kind of thing, all kinds of different stuff. I'm going to post all of the different sessions. But getting back to the personal brand component, I really had the chance to dive in when I started in 1998 working at Disney. And it was very regimented, and it was very specific, and it was very deliberate, and I loved it. Even in the way that we went to work every day, if you were to scan in a minute late, there would be a point system that would accrue, and there was a way that you needed to present yourself every time you were in front of the audience, regardless of whether or not you were on stage or not. There were things that you could do, there were things that you couldn't do, and you really had to be aware of how you were representing the brand at Disney. And they still do that today. Hopefully they'll open again. I was at Disneyland. I worked in a show called Fantasmic, and then I also was in the Electrical Parade and in the Christmas Parade, and worked in the park a lot. And it was kind of the eye-opener. And then from there, I actually, while I was working at Disneyland, I was also in college, and I also picked up a job at the Olive Garden, which is a Darden restaurant. And I had another, I worked at Burger King, which was a really great experience. And I worked at a few other restaurants that really didn't do a very good job at representing their brand through their employee behavior. And then I landed at what we all call the OG. And it was so refreshing to work for a company that had, again, taken the opportunity to really own their brand and to have things in place that allowed you to pick up on what they expected and how you could deliver on those brand standards while you were engaging with your customers, both front of house and back of house. So I learned a lot of different things while I was there, and I was there on and off for about 10 years and had the opportunity to branch out into employee scheduling and team building, and it taught me a lot of skills. So anyone who's interested in food service or developing those skills, I would say go for food service. Fast forwarding, because we're keeping it moving here, I've got a timer set. Project management is the next thing that I fell into through a friend at Disney. So network is super important, and it's all who you know, and the right place, the right time, I suppose. But you got to be out there, and you have to be engaging with what it is that you want. But I had the privilege of traveling the world on behalf of different brands, producing for them in some pretty solid and huge ways. I worked with Nike at the Olympics. I traveled the NASCAR circuit with Red Bull. I used to drive a double-decker bus for them. I was producing Go Skate Day for Nike. I was down in New Orleans producing for Jordan and developed this really cool holographic experience for the All-Star Weekend, and produced hundreds of events through project management, direct for brand to consumer. And then I was doing an independent thing, and I was, producing for different agencies, both in New York and here in California. And I had the wonderful opportunity to move to China and be the enterprise experience director for a company called WeWork for all of Asia Pacific. And there I got to see how brands are changing themselves at the core with regards to their presentation of who they are in the workplace and how they're engaging with their employees, and kind of taking a step back and not thinking so much about how that final delivery is to the consumer, which is very important, but also how the walls are representing you and how the strategy is representing you in a little more of an authentic way, because the reality is that transparency is everywhere, and we see so much more. I've always, in working with all of these brands and in working with all of these opportunities, I've recognized my passion for people, and I've recognized my passion for small businesses that are looking to deliver services to people who are trying to tell their brand story. So last year in September, I became the Chief Operating Officer over at Vendorspace, which is an amazing digital platform for anyone who has a service to provide in the event world. You just go onto Vendorspace, you set up an account, you put in your information, and then any event organizer who is searching for a solution, they don't just get one solution, but they get a database of solutions. And we're working right now on the product development side on how to make that more engaging, how to bring more solutions together, really from a logistical and creative standpoint. So we're trying to cut through a lot of the distractions that are out there right now in the sourcing world, and really just try and be a yellow pages for events. The Shortcut series is something that I am offering for the year of 2021. Every month it's a different topic. I was doing ticket sales, but I think what I'm going to wind up doing is just putting the content out there and then asking you guys to subscribe so that I can stay in touch with you. Won't be anything overwhelming, but if you are interested, again, in any of the exercises, the toolkits, the reference links, the videos, all you got to do is give me your email address and I'll give you all these goodies. So let's get started. Some amazing points on branding pulled from history. So let's start with, what is a brand? When you go back to the very beginning, the term brand is really associated to the actual product that you have in hand. You're like, okay, cool. My brand is my product. Then with the development of time and competition, which we'll get into, it really became about how is my brand represented to the consumer base that is going to purchase it. And now fast forward to with the social media thing, brand has really come back full circle to an individual and how that individual represents themselves. And so it's a really interesting development with regards to the word brand. And those segments, we're going to focus today on who you are and how you're being represented. If you're representing a brand, how you're representing that brand, and kind of thinking a little bit more deeper on what branding means to a company. And if you're a small business owner and you're developing your own brand and your own product and your own service to put out there, kind of thinking about some of the tricks and the strategies to keep in mind as you're putting the effort in. So learning from history. So where does the word brand come from? The word brand literally comes from the act of branding a cow. Back in the 1500s, there were, herds merging, and there was the need to identify who owned what. And so at the core, everything that you do with regards to your brand, your personal brand, the company that you've built, the company that you work for, you need to own it. Branding is about ownership. And if there's nothing else that you walk away with, it's be proud and know who you are and be authentic. And if you can stand strong and own your brand, then you are setting yourself up on a really solid foundation. So what does that mean? That might mean developing an elevator pitch, like knowing how to summarize who you are or what you do or what you serve or what you provide in a very clean and simple way, and recognizing how you can tell the story of your brand. And every time you tell that story, you have got to champion it. No one will champion your brand the way that you do. So now the cows are all branded, and that's the 1500s. We're going to fast forward 200, almost 300 years. And now we have the Industrial Revolution, and things are being manufactured. And originally it was the Ford. And the Ford was out there and it was doing its thing. And, they were kind of running this marathon and they were out ahead of the game. But it wasn't long. It was like 20 years before additional brands started popping up. Oldsmobile, Chevrolet. And all of a sudden you needed to really think about how to differentiate yourself. Now, a lot of that happens naturally. So when you are your brand, you will naturally be different than everybody else that's out there. But you need to do the due diligence to make sure that you are telling the world how you're different. So I'll be putting up tools on how you can do those exercises. There's also some links that I'm putting into the work that other people have done, because, don't invent the wheel if there's already good tools out there. But doing the exercise to recognize, what is your brand style guide? What is your logo? What colors do you associate with? How are you putting yourself out there? And be bold about it. Go recognize that being unique and being you is something that no one else can do. So stand, whether that's the color of your hair being different, or whether that is creating a product that no one else believes in, no one was behind Spanx, and look at Spanx now, right? So that, really, if you believe in it and you believe in yourself, be loud and be proud. Okay, so now you have this brand, whether it's you or a product or someone you represent, and you recognize that the brand isn't just one thing. The brand is about the story that you're telling about that thing. And so you have the opportunity to connect the dots, right? Like here we're looking at McDonald's. McDonald's, you have the product, you have the product itself. Then you have the stuff the product's wrapped in. Then you've got the stuff that people are wearing to represent the, location and the style in which you're at. Then you've got architecture that's bringing in the golden arches. Now this is flamboyant, but you should connect your dots, right? As simple as, what if it's your personal brand? What am I wearing today? What is the environment that I'm choosing to be in when I represent myself? It does become very physical when you're talking about yourself and introducing yourself, because the visual environment that you're putting yourself in for a personal situation is the thing that will speak the loudest. But then the content that you're putting out there, the logo that you're putting out there, the advertisement that you're putting out there, it should all be connected across the board. All right, we're fast forwarding through time, and we're recognizing that with all of these assignments and with all of these challenges and putting yourself out there and making sure that you're connecting the dots, you also shouldn't get hung up on the fact that you need to put the perfect thing out there the first time. Brands will always evolve. You are going to change every day. The things that you are building are going to change every day. I think I've already said twice, don't hold me accountable to the things that I'm telling you with regards to how this whole package is being delivered. I recognize that life is flexible, and you only have control of so many things. And so as you're maturing into the evolution of your brand, and as things come to recognition, there's going to be points where you're like, you know what, in 2020, I was super into the color purple, or I really liked rounded edges, or I wanted to showcase to the world that I was an amazing singer, or I was all about tech. Um, you can reintroduce yourself as many times as you have to. The important thing is that when you reintroduce yourself, you make sure that that is kind of like a wave that goes over all of the things that you've pushed out there. So your social media channels should all be connected, and you should really build a plan to say, okay, this is the new me. I'm putting myself out there. I've matured. I've grown. You can be transparent about that. Honesty and authenticity is critical. So there you go. Now we're moving into the next segment, which is, again, catered at personal and product and service based branding. Where did the personal brand come from? Actually, I should say this is about personal branding, not so much about the business anymore. This is about sharpening your personal brand. So the very first time that we ever heard of personal branding was in 1938. And there's this really amazing book. It's called Think and Grow Rich. And it was written by this guy named Napoleon Hill. And the book is jam-packed full of things that are still relevant today, right? Probably far more relevant than this webcast will ever be. But Napoleon was, he had his finger on the pulse, and he kind of understood and got to see things from a big picture perspective. So Hill says, personal branding involves creating an asset by defining an individual's body, clothing, physical appearance, and areas of knowledge in a way which leads to a uniquely distinguishable, positive, and ideally memorable impression. It's an interesting thing to think about, right? We go back to the visual representation of how you're putting yourself out there. And back in 1938, there weren't a whole lot of ways to demonstrate who you were besides showing up at a place and having people have an opinion of you. So we're talking more like door-to-door salesmen, right? Selling vacuums, or it could be more of like a business transaction, or someone who's working in a bank. And I think, like at this point, you're talking about your community. But as time has brought new tools to us, now it's like the eyes are upon you, right? Like you can make an impression in Poland tomorrow if you use the right hashtag and put yourself out there. And so now we have this core of who you are, and there are these different tools that we're putting out there. And anyone who has a social profile, which you should have a social profile, unless you're getting ready to retire or you're working for the CIA or something, but you should push yourself out there in a way that creates a positive and memorable impression. Now, don't get too caught up on the pressures of what that means. It all comes back to being authentic and just being yourself, right? And we're gonna talk a little bit about what does someone on the outside look for, right? So what is the objective of a personal brand? The objective of a personal brand is, with regards to your professionalism, is threefold. Number one, showing how you're unique. Now, again, you put on a pair of clothes and you put yourself into an environment where you are demonstrating who you are, and that's it. Like, you don't have to reinvent yourself. You just need to be your authentic self. And, whether it's the food that you like, or the skills that you have, or the culture that you are affiliated to, or the music that you like, all of it comes together to create a result that is uniquely you. So don't be afraid to channel more than one part of yourself, and know that it's going to be like kind of like your own unique little puzzle. And at the end of it, you're going to have this fabric that lets people see who you are and how that relates to what they might be interested in using you for. Secondarily, we talked about skills. We mentioned skills like 10 seconds ago. But the ability to showcase what you've been refining with regards to your contributions in the professional world. So if you are a professional dancer, I think all of us have seen this on Instagram, but if you're a professional dancer, you're probably going to have dancing content on your page. If you are someone who is coding, you're likely going to have things that are related to coding on your page. If you're someone who is a leader, you're going to have things that demonstrate your leadership on your pages. And it happens naturally. It all happens naturally. But you should be aware and you should be conscious of the things that you're putting out there, because it does all come together to create an impression. Working on that elevator pitch, right? When we put ourselves out there and we actively exercise our personal brand and how we can describe who we are and what we do, every time that you are in a room or in an interview and you have the opportunity to express who you are, you can come across with confidence. And a lot of us kind of go to that place where we're like, oh, well, it's just what I do and it's who I am. But no, be bold, own your brand, right? So it's like, I'm Stephanie and I am an experience design expert. Demonstrating who you are and your unique persona, demonstrating your skills specifically on how that ties into how you can contribute to what you want to do in the bigger picture, and then advancing your own skills by vocalizing that and exercising your definition of your personal brand every time that you put yourself out there and walk into a space where you can meet someone new who might be able to expand your opportunities. Did you know that 70% of employers use social media to screen candidates during the hiring process? And did you know that 43% of employers use social media to check in on current employees? Now that study was done in 2018 by Career Builder. So I would have to imagine, if I was guessing, that those numbers are even higher. So where does an employer go when they are looking to find out a bit more about you? There are a handful of different outlets. Essentially anything goes, because they are likely just typing you into a Google search to start. And what are they looking for? So number one, they're looking for red flags: nudity, profanity, drug use, right? So if you are someone who really cannot help but showcase habits that would be construed as negative by an employer, you probably shouldn't apply to jobs that are looking for that kind of employee. There are a lot of different things for you to consider, and knowing that is an important thing, because nobody wants to waste your time, right? Ain't nobody got time for that. Are you creative? Looking at how you portray yourself and the pictures that you take or the things that you say, it does demonstrate how your mind works. And innovation is a really important thing, and contributing thoughts to a team has never been more important. So are you creative? Are you qualified? And this, kind of goes into the LinkedIn, which we'll talk about in just a second. But they're looking to see if you are qualified to do what it is that you are applying for. And then we talked about this just a little bit, but there are different cultural segments that are fitting into the world, or that exist in the world. And so different brands have different personalities. Those different personalities do best when they are represented by people that have similar personalities. So if you're working for, Nike, they may look for someone who is either extremely advanced in a particular skill set that they have a need for, or they may be looking to find people who are engaged in active lifestyle and are, demonstrating that they are championing the spirit of just do it. And there's a lot of different ways that can be demonstrated. And, I'll never forget, one of the coolest things when I was working at Nike was there was this guy who was working on product development, and he was a paraplegic. But, they accommodated him, which is extremely important to think about how different people with different needs are able to contribute when they're given the tools to succeed. But he was unable to move his hands and unable to move his legs, and he rolled in a wheelchair, but he was 1,000% culturally fit for the brand. And so there's a lot of different ways where you might fit in, but you don't have to be a marathon runner to work for Nike. But doing brand research also helps on your end. So if there is a certain brand or there is a certain service or product that you're wanting to be affiliated to, do a little bit of research on the type of people that they're hiring or what things look like in their workplace or the types of extracurricular activities that they're doing outside of the mainstream, right? Like every brand is out in the field doing something. So get to know who they are, and are they doing a lot of volunteer work? Are they out building houses? Are they out cleaning beaches? Are they out doing educational seminars for people? Are they empowering women of color? Like what are the brands doing that you want to work for? And it is important to kind of have you need to do your due diligence to make sure that you're feeding into your channels what it is that the people that you want to work with want to see. That will show us kind of what people are looking for, what employers are looking for in each particular segment, right? So number one, LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I'm going to read from here, your online resume. What is your past experience? What are your network connections? Who has recommended you and what have they said about you? And what does your professional personality look like? So tips in that regard: stay active, stay engaged, expand your network. So as I'm reading things, even on my Instagram, or I see a cool article that was written by someone that I really feel connected to, I'm really a big fan of the Los Angeles Economic Development Committee, and they host different things that talk about the future of Los Angeles. If there's a great speaker that is talking about, the advancements of transportation, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want to know who this person is. And I will type their name into LinkedIn and I will make the connection, and it'll usually say like, leave a message for this person. And I will be like, hi, my name is Stephanie. I am watching you right now on this webinar, and I'm super into what you're talking about. I can't wait to follow you and stay connected. If there's anything that I can do to support you, know that you've got a fan in me. And in that, I think I'm like at 1,400 followers on LinkedIn, but every one of them, I have a reason for following, and they know, like there's a genuine, authentic connection that I'm making there when I'm requesting their friendship. Now, there are also those people on LinkedIn that I'm connecting with because they're connected to a person that I'm connected to, and I do use my network as a catalyst to expand my network. So if I see someone who is working on a project for Netflix that I really love, the first thing that I'll do is I'll click on them and I'll see if we have any mutual friends. And if we do have mutual friends, I kind of think about like, oh, cool, like we both know so-and-so. And then that makes me think a little bit differently about so-and-so. And I can't understress the importance of your network. And LinkedIn is a really great way to expand that professional network. So if you see a motivational speaker, if you read a great book, if you're attending a webinar and you appreciate the things that someone is saying, if you see a newscast, or if you're seeing something in a different dynamic and you like what you hear, take the time to put that person into your network, because it's going to create, or it's going to weave into the fabric of the results of you. Ask for recommendations. I actually do owe a few people recommendations for my internship from Vendorspace. But if you are just starting your career, or if you're doing something where you're independent and recommendations go really far, ask people to leave a recommendation. And on LinkedIn, you can actually request people to leave you a recommendation. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and ask for it actively. And on a handful of notes, I've actually written my own, and this ties back into my website, but I've written my own recommendations and I've sent them to people to say, hey, I think you would say this about me. If you're right, feel free to tweak it. But if you're right, I would love to be able to put you on to my page as an advocate. And sometimes doing the work for the person will make it a lot faster with regards to getting the results. And then number two, which you can also do on Facebook, is um, join groups. Find groups that are doing things that you're interested in. And when someone on the outside is looking at who you are, they will also see the groups that you're in. And two things might happen. Number one, they can get an understanding of where you're affiliated, regardless of their own personal standpoint. But number two, they may see that you're in groups that they're also in. And that automatically creates a much smaller circle of community when you are actively engaged in a group, or not even necessarily heavily actively engaged, but you're getting the content, and you have been allowed into this group, and so who is looking for X, Y, and Z is also in this group. It's a lot easier to build a bridge when there is visual connection, or connection that you can 6 degrees of separation, a point A to a point B. Shifting to Instagram, and I'll speed up the pace here because I know that we are we're running out of time. But your personality is really what comes out. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and Instagram is a photo-based platform. What are people looking for? Your unique style, your passion, your creativity, your habits. On Instagram, things that don't go well: if you posted one picture in 2016 and haven't done anything since. You want to make sure that you stay active on all of the platforms. Share great moments. So if something really amazing happens, you get a certificate, you are given recognition in some way, shape, or form, you accomplish something that you're really proud of, put it up there. Like, go for it. Keep it appropriate. Instagram, also, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but if you're, using illegal drugs, if you are booty shaking with very little clothes on, if you're using profanities, unless you fit into a very small group of people who can get away with that kind of thing, you need to recognize that that's going to be, again, top of the list, red flag, like, ain't nobody got time for that. Be authentic. The one thing that you want to make sure that you do always and forever is just be you. And that puts the unique impression into play. And people will be like, I like this. I like this combination of ingredients. I want a bite of that cookie. All right, Facebook. So Facebook is, definitely different than Instagram. I link everything on my Instagram to my Facebook, and I kind of use it as a cheat. And I do still use Facebook to promote events that I'm doing and to keep that channel of communication open. There's a different demographic that's involved in Facebook. But what you might find an employer or a future employer or a future client or collaborator looking for on Facebook is, number one, your reputation. Things can get a little heated and political on Facebook. So you'll see that there's a little bit more of that evaluation. Your contribution. So a lot of times if you are supporting nonprofits, or if you are doing good work in the world, that will pop up a little bit more frequently on Facebook than it will on any other platform. Your language skills. Oftentimes we use words on Facebook a little bit more. And so, how is your spelling? Are you able to clearly communicate what it is that you're trying to express? And so, things like that. Sometimes when you walk in and you're applying for a job, you'll be given an exercise to complete. But because of social media, you can actually see people's skill sets without having to take them through that hoop and bring them in. And employers, don't take it personal, but they typically will have a pile of resumes on their desk. And I learned this when I was working at Red Bull. I entered into an opportunity where the person who I took over for, didn't look at a resume in 6 or 7 months. And so when I landed at Red Bull, the first thing that I had to do was go into a backlogged database of resumes, and there were 3,000 resumes in there. And every day I would just start chipping away, and I went back to the very beginning and I just started going through them. And I did find some of the most wonderful people that I never would have found had I not done the due diligence. Hello, Kelsey. Hello, Whitney. Hello, Taylor. Hello, Devin. Like a huge group of people that I got to bring into my team. But I also had the ability to speed date resumes. And it was very easy to separate the people that I was going to even take the time to do a 10-question call on, where I'd be like, hi, what's your name? Are you still interested in this position? Do you have reliable transportation? Versus the people that I just didn't have time for because they didn't follow the assignment, which was upload your resume and give me a little jingle about yourself. When I opened up the resume, it was incomplete, and there were misspellings and there was formatting issues. And I was like, listen, if you're not going to care enough to put yourself out there in a way that you respect, I'm not going to respect the fact that you want a job. I'm going to move forward with the people who have put the time and the effort in to working on their personal brand representation, and those are the people that I'm going to move forward with. And that exercise of 3,000 resumes in the course of a couple of weeks has left an imprint with regards to knowing the difference of what can be presented and recognizing what I as an employer want to commit to with regards to onboarding new employees. No offense to those other people. They were probably great, but they didn't put their time in. Time is like so valuable. Speaking of which, let's keep it moving. So stay active, double check your spelling, talk about your accomplishments, join relevant groups. Be proud, own your brand. If you do something great, vocalize it, share your story, right? And then there's just the Google search bar. Boom, boom, boom. I did a blog post on this. So if you're interested, go back to my earlier blog posts and you'll see like what I did and going in and exercising my own Google search. What would you even call it? My Google search results. There we go. But when I first did my Google search, there was a lot of content that came up. Actually, it's really funny. Still to this day, there is one image because I did cabaret for a nonprofit called One More Productions that does amazing musical theater in Orange County. So if anyone's interested in singing and dancing and performing on stage, which is another really great way to develop your presence, One More Productions is a great one to check out. Anyway, we did cabaret. And there is this picture of all of us in lingerie saluting the Nazi flag, walking with our legs straight. I've had to absorb the fact that some of the choices that I've made with regards to performance, if you do cabaret, there is a potential affiliation to Nazism. But if someone were ever to ask me about that, I could explain it away, and it is pretty obvious on the Google search that it is affiliated to a musical production of cabaret. So I don't think that anyone would think that I was doing that in my spare time, or it was something that I was like, I'm not burning a flag, and I'm certainly not, being disrespectful, but I'm creating art. And that works for my personality. So you'll see my Cha-Cha Gregorio, Danny Zuko, costume contest at Hollywood Bowl, and you will see the shows that I've been in and the press and the media that I've participated in, and some of the seminars that I've spoken in. And when I look at my own Google search results, now they are genuinely reflecting who I was. I did need to do an exercise in cohesion. And it's super important that you do your due diligence in saying, okay, cool. If I Google my name, these 7 things are going to pop up. Are those 7 things, are you able to connect the dots of those 7 things? Like I'm not a huge Twitter girl, and my Twitter still had my 2015 motto and 2015 information, and it was outdated, and it was no longer, it wasn't keeping up with the maturity of the things that I had created in the 5 years since. And so I took the time to go in and change that. Now, the one thing that I can leave you with regards to the existence of your digital personal brand is that you are, it takes time, right? There's caches or cachets, however you want to say it. But each one, Facebook, Instagram, anything that's online, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything that would pop up on Google, minus your own website, which you have a little bit more control over, there are caches. And so if you are thinking about getting ready to apply for a job, you should work on the alignment of your digital personal brand a few weeks, if you can, at least a month prior to like knowing that someone's going to be looking at you. Usually once a month, there is a refresh where the information that you put up will circulate back to the surface. If you go to Twitter and if you go to Instagram, the results will be there right away. But if you go to a Google search, that like little jot of like information, that will be determined upon, like that information that's being posted there will be refreshed at a certain time based on a very large algorithm that that company has put into place. So you can't call Twitter and be like, hey, I have a job interview tomorrow. I need you to make sure that my current information is being shown. It's not going to happen. So give yourself time. Like if you, again, like be active with your personal branding. Make sure that you are, recognizing that this information is going to be evaluated and looked at. And don't wait until the last second to do it, and check in. So, I would say quarterly. I'm a big fan of, being proactive in the way that we're putting ourselves out there. Again, unless you're living under a rock. And I hate to say it, but we really don't have a choice in this. This is, if you want to live and engage in the world and you want to be an active participant in life, and you are a young person in particular, like you're someone who's just getting started, do the work to get your personal brand in place. Whether or not you are applying for a job, my coffee maker's turning off. Whether or not you're applying for a job, or whether or not you are defining your own product or service, personal brand will carry over on both sides. Okay, did I hit play on this? I don't know. I think that I did. So you want to be an influencer. Let's talk about that for a second. So who is an influencer? What is an influencer? An influencer, first and foremost, is someone who has something other than their social media personality to leverage to talk about. So if you're a travel blogger, then you're dedicating times and funds to traveling around places and putting photos up. If you are a food blogger, you are taking the time to either cook your own food or go to different restaurants, and then you're investing the time in creating that persona for you. And then if things go really well, which is a fraction of us, so don't think that you're going to be, out there doing your, overnight sensation type of stuff, unless you're like able to do something that's really unique with your body. Like if you're an incredible singer, or if you are able to like detach a body part or something along those lines, the ability to become an influencer is a long journey. So basically what happens is you have a core skill that is attractive to a group of people, likely a niche market, someone who turns lemonade into all kinds of different things. And you've got lemonade popsicles, and you've got lemonade suckers, and you've got lemonade, just lemonade. And there's a group of people out there that love lemonade. Brands are going to recognize that there is a following, and they're going to approach you and say, hey, we like what you're doing. We recognize that your brand, your community is authentically engaged with you. We want to either give you brand, or we want to give you product to put out there, and you can have it for free, or we'll pay you for X, Y, and Z. Now, there's a link that I'll put up, and you'll find it in the references, and you can find this information very easily online. But it takes quite a bit of followers for you to be able to start generating income as an influencer. So if that's something that you really want to do, let's talk about the points. Number one, educate yourself. there is a lot of information that you can easily find online about what it takes to actually become an influencer. What I can tell you is that buying a following will not give you the sponsorship dollars that you're looking for. You need to be authentically engaged with a group of people that are actively committed to what it is that you're saying. They care about what you're saying. Not like, Joe Schmo who has a fake account who doesn't check on it and doesn't care about lemonade. You want people who really love your lemonade, right? So understand the time and the energy that it is going to take to be able to become an influencer. And if this is really your passion, you have to recognize that it's not just about you being on social and saying things, because the world is full of content. You have to distinguish yourself, and you have to have a reason why people will follow you besides you just being cool. Even Kim Kardashian, she wouldn't be who she is if her father wasn't who he was, and if O.J. Simpson didn't do what he did, and that whole Jenner family didn't go down and the Kardashian family didn't go down the road of their personal experiences that gave them this very unique opportunity to leverage themselves and then put themselves out there. But they didn't, and Kim, there's a whole nother story about making choices. She's one of those people who has had an opportunity to do some pretty risque things on digital form and still live to tell the tale. But don't think that the Kim Kardashians are falling out of trees. Like, it's a rarity. It's like a 1 in a billion type of thing. Anywho, hence only one Kim Kardashian. On a side note, the little Jenner, she made more money than any other celebrity last year. Can't even remember her name right now. But you can make money, but it is a very difficult thing to do, and it is not something that commonly happens. So number 2, invest in your career. So content is going to be king if you are looking to be an influencer. And we've already talked about the fact that you need to have something that is other than your personality to leverage, most likely. But being a social media influencer requires more skills than you might think. And this is my first masterclass ever. But what I can tell you is that you've got to be able to command presence on camera. You have to have good speaking skills and presentation skills. You have to have good time management, and you're going to need to invest in your own career and work on yourself. Otherwise, you're going to become stagnant, and it's only going to be like a hot minute moment. So if you are, unless you're running into burning buildings and saving children, like you can put that content up there, you'll gather yourself a whole bunch. I'm not saying that you should, but you have to invest in your career. So create a plan that says, I'm going to continue to develop my skill set. I'm going to continue to develop soft skills that help me tell people about my skill set. And investing in that is going to require probably some money, maybe even before you start making money. So that's something that you need to think through. It might be that you have an actual job that can supplement your passion, that you want to become an influencer, and it's not going to happen overnight. So you have to kind of think about it as a journey, and really dedicate yourself to it without any guarantee, right? So it's a little bit of a scary one, and maybe something that would be healthy to do as a side job or a second job, right? That you can do in your off hours. Number 3 is that you're running a marathon that has a bunch of sprints built into it. So again, kind of thinking about not just putting yourself out there, let's just say that you're a food blogger, or let's just say that you're a travel blogger, or let's say that you're a fashion blogger. Be mindful of taking care of your body. Be mindful of the sleep and the rest that you get. Be mindful of the stuff that you're consuming. Like, I value yourself and we only have one body and we only have one life. So be weary that you may feel the pressures of needing to deliver to the people who are watching, and that you could put your own personal health and your own mental health and physical health as a secondary to trying to satisfy people who are your audience, it is never worth it. So I know that like I'm getting a little bit preachy and a little bit motherly. I think it's the Leo in me, but the reality is that the life of an influencer is a tricky one. Start by doing the research that is needed. You know, even in building a podcast or building a masterclass series. You know, I was working until 2:00 last night, and I was up again at 6:00 this morning. Now I'm happy to do it, and I've paced it into my program to where I'm not only sleeping 4 hours every night, but there is time and energy that is required for everything in life, and prioritizing where you put those things, it is important. Okay, so I think that just about brings us to the end. The only person who can and will do the work is you. You need to champion yourself. You need to get out there. You need to be bold. You need to be proud. You need to own your brand. And that's it. So I'm signing off. I hope you've enjoyed this segment. It's raw. It's real. And I know I've made some mistakes, but I think that the imperfections are the perfections. Signing off for now. Join me for my next masterclass. I will be putting additional information up. It will be about finance. It will be about credit. It will be about saving strategies, tricking yourself into saving more money than you actually are. And there's going to be some really fun and interesting facts that come up there, and some tips and whatnot. Tell me what you think. Please let me know and engage in the search bar. And it's only going to get better. This is the first one. It is January 2021, and I am Stephanie Zellhofer. This has been the Masterclass Shortcut series on sharpening your personal brand. I hope that you have found value in it. I know I certainly have. Have a wonderful rest of the month, and I will see you in February.